All right, so we're talking about things we didn't realize as kids, and we're talking about racism and slavery and how it was not very well taught. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't realize that racism was a thing until basically high school. The elementary school that I went to was predominantly white and very secluded in a white area. So I mean, that could just be just the education system in general, maybe not specifically just the school, but yeah, the majority of stuff like that, like Columbus, they teach you to be a good person. A lot of historical people did a lot of really bad things. They just don't tell that to kids because they want to protect them, I guess. But I think
protect them from the truth.
Protect them from the truth, and just like not expose them to the bad things that are going on in the world to protect themselves also. Like protecting, I guess protecting like Americans from thinking, oh, we had this horrible thing happen in our country, like slavery years and years ago, and then there's racism which still exists, and they're trying to like the government is funding the schools and stuff, so they don't want to teach them, oh, we still have this thing going on, we're still not the best that we could be. They want to raise Americans to be patriotic and be like, oh, America's great.
Okay. What else? What else did y'all not realize as kids? Can we shut this door? Thanks. I feel all exposed when the door's open. We have some pretty intense conversations.
One thing that I didn't realize was growing up, my cousin was a lot lighter than me and my sister and my dad. And so I remember this one instance that I was like at my house and everything, and my cousin she just assumed that we were dirty. So she actually, like, growing up, she would get like baby wipes or whatever, and she would try like to like clean our like color of our skins because she just didn't realize like the different colors. And like most of like my mom's side of the family, they're very like light skinned compared to like me and my sister who are a little bit more like on my dad's side, like a little bit darker. So I think that just like showed me like a different like type of thing, like that a lot of children don't really realize the color of skin.
Yeah. And as prevalent as we try to make that, right? Like we really try to make that the thing that we talk about when we talk about race, right? But to know that kids don't get that, right? It's because it doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make any sense. So kids are going to be kids and they do ratchet shit like that, right? Oh man, I have 6 brothers and sisters. All of us are a different shade. Every single one of us are a different shade. Like we could walk into a room, you wouldn't know we were related, right? But we go into our cousin's house, right? And we're very different from them. My cousins on my dad's side, right? Because they're much darker than us. So we had a lot of similar things happen there, but kind of the reverse. Like it was a lot of question about like, why don't you look like the rest of us? Or they would get dolls. And I didn't realize as a kid that like Black dolls weren't a thing. Because my family, well, we didn't really like play with dolls like that in general. But I remember specifically getting this gift of a Black doll from my dad's side of the family. And my mom would make comments about how the other kids played with their dolls. And oh, they're so rough with them. It's because they have the darker ones, right? The hair would always be different. And she would always like try to praise me for how I would play with mine. Oh, you keep yours so well kept, right? And I'm just like, it's a doll. Do you know what I do with dolls at home? Like I tear the legs off and pretend that I'm making chicken. What? But yeah, like these interactions we have when we're kids, we don't understand that really, right? Yeah. What else? What else did you like? Wait till you got to around this age and you're like, wow, that was real fucked up. Have you and your family talked about this since then too?
Yes, we talked about it because again, like my aunt, so like she told us like recently, she's like, I don't know what she was thinking like when she did that, and I'm like, well, yeah, it's because like I was like, she was just like even from her dad's side of the family, they were all like very, very light compared to like my dad. Like my dad's side of the family is a lot darker.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw like such a huge difference in between like how she grew up and like how she actually saw like the like different colors and shades that all of us are.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because like when we step out into the world, right, we're not considered dark. But in some spaces, right, in some spaces we are considered dark. Oof. Give me one more thing that y'all didn't realize as kids.
So for me, had on parents to pick up their children from school. Until very recently, my mom and I thought this one time because always packed. People just park their cars like right there in the street, the little narrow street, and just get out their cars and go pick up the kids. And I never understood why. For my mom, I had to be there right away. I had to get out of school right away. Real quick, get there, let's go. And if I was like a minute late, she would get on me like, "Where are you? Why are you here?" And I never understood it until we went to go pick up my sister. And immediately she wasn't there. "Where are you? Why aren't you here?" And I talked to her about this one time. This one morning we dropped off my sister. She was like, "Because most parents in this community in LA are on their lunch break. Or on their, they take time out of their schedule to do that. You don't get that everywhere. That's why most kids have to walk home or take the bus. And so all those people are like, "We gotta go, let's go. You're taking time out of my day, I got other stuff to do. Get here." So I didn't understand that till like now. And
Yeah, the weight of adult responsibilities.
It's always crazy. I hate it. She hates it because people drive so stupid. It's like you're right by the school. And they try to regulate it by having a ticket enforcer. But one day just gave all tickets, but eventually once they go away, you're done.
It's cheaper to pay the ticket one time.
They be taking U-turns, or they'll get impatient or block, and they'll honk at people to go. But everyone's like, "No, I'm waiting for my kid. You're blocked. We're here to go." Right. Like this one time, we had an instance where this younger couple was in a car trying to get around us, and they were honking heavily at us. My mom laughed. She was like, "What do you want me to do? No one's gonna move. You're blocked, and there's a bus right here. There's a reason we're all stationed. There's a bus right there waiting for the children." And they got stuck right there, right by the bus and right in front of us. And my mom laughed her ass off. She did. She was like, "Look at you. Where did you go?" She's like, "Oh, you got far." It's horrible.
Traffic is terrible.
But that's what I did get with that. For them, they have to make time.
Right. And then sometimes it's that added fear that we were talking about a couple of weeks ago too, right? Like they are trying to hurry up and get in and get out because they don't want to be seen, right? There's still a lot of ICE fear. There's still a lot of fear of just stereotypes in general, right? So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I didn't realize as a kid that everybody doesn't have school buses. Like y'all take regular buses to school. I didn't know that. Yeah. I always had a school, which would be the entire structure of the system, right? So the CSUs, right, as a system. So understanding that, right? Yes, everyone can be racist in some way, shape, or form. So why do we have this common idea that, well, certain groups can't be racist?
I think it partially goes back to what we were talking about last week, and that colonial idea that groups like all people of color together, or groups all Asians together, groups all Latinos together, because for some reason, like one of the things that I didn't realize when I was growing up, when I was taught about racism, was that, well, first of all, that it's majority of the time it's white people being racist to all people of color.
Right.
And people of color can say whatever they want about other people of color. So Black people can say anything they want about Asians and not be considered racism. So going back to what I said, I'm just gonna like edit what I said before. I know that there's definitely a lot of racism towards white people, because the majority of my friends are not white, and they tell me like all the stuff that it goes on in their families, and they say, oh, do you do this, you know? But I think in the media, it's not portrayed so much as racism. It's just, or it's not labeled as
Yes.
racism in the media. So that's not what it's considered. But this was a good example of, oh, it totally is racism.
Mhm. Yeah. Usually when we think about racism, we only think about it in those top tiers, right? In the institutional, in the structural levels. And so because the majority of people of color have not had access to power in those spaces, right? In those parts of the systems, well, of course we wouldn't think that we could be racist, right? Why would we be able to do something that we don't even have access to? How you gonna hate from outside the club you can't even get in? Right? Yeah. But really, there's so much more to it than that, right? And so this is absolutely a wonderful example of this. I mean, not wonderful, but you know, it's fucked up. But it gets the point, right? Okay. Somebody add to this dialogue. What did you read in the article that adds to this? Give me something.
For me, one thing I noticed was how it pointed out that for Black communities or for Black communities with Black people, there is this rush not to go around them because it's dangerous, it's
Yes.
dirty, stay away. And when I read that, I immediately recognized that I didn't know there was a name for physically anti-Black because how I've been growing up,
Mhm.
especially the fact that I live in South Carolina towards San Pedro, Maine. We were all low income. There's some projects around. I live in not a safe neighborhood, mostly with Black people, and a couple of doing that, and that's literally always been my mindset. I've always been told, be careful where you're around. We're not a safe neighborhood. A lot of beautiful people. There's a lot of activity. When I read that, I was like, yeah, there is. I didn't realize that you're told not to go around these communities because at some point it has to become dangerous. You have to be aware. But to hear about how it started, it was shocking to me because it's kind of just a normal thing for me to go around with that mindset, especially since I've had incidents, most of my most impactful incidents, things within my past, I had to move from the only time my family has ever had a house was Section 8, which was like a blessing.
Yeah.
When do you get a house with Section 8? An
Right.
actual house.
People can't even get off the list. The list is a decade long.
Yeah, we've always had apartments, small apartments. For Section 8, you only give, if you don't know, you only get amount of rooms. The amount of rooms you get in the Section 8 apartment is based on how many kids you have. And it's kind of like it's kind of thought out like, oh, the rooms are going to get bigger for kids. So it's not a lot of rooms, never enough room. So when you get a house, it's like, oh my God, it's perfect. We had enough. I mean, it still was like only 2 rooms because my mom only had me and my sister, but it was perfect. But we had to leave because our next door neighbors had a bit about parking, and they thought they were like, hey, you're in my parking, but it was in front of our house, so it was public parking, and because of that, we got very heavily harassed, and he would mess my mom's car. It would scratch her cars, it would slash her tires. To put stuff in the gas tank. They started following my mom to work and started following me to school and knowing my schedule. And my mom would overhear them plan stuff out. Oh, hey, her daughter gets home from this and this is her route, blah, blah. So we had to leave. Yeah, and most of our instances have been with Black people. So we do have more of a bias against them. We're more wary when it comes to Black people.
Sure.
So that, and also add that on top of the notion of what's been told about Black communities and whatnot. So when I read that, I was like, I'm ashamed to say that I lived in my whole life with this
But please know that it's also not your shame to carry. It's not your shame to carry, because you have been conditioned to think these things, right? You've been taught to think these things. And then when incidents do happen that reinforce the stereotypes, you only have so many interactions with other people, right? And so when you have the interactions with other people that only reinforce what you've been taught, well, of course you're going to carry that. Of course, that's what you're going to think, right? That's why it's important for us to constantly be striving to be the opposite of these stereotypes, as difficult as that can be, right? Even while other people are being however they're going to be towards us, right? When you go into the stores and you're getting followed, when you're getting followed by other people, right? It's a constant struggle to balance your protection as well as to be the anti-stereotype. And for kids, that's a lot of weight. That's a lot to have to carry, right? That's a lot for society to have asked of you as a child, right? The society tends to ask a lot of us, right? Whether you're minoritized, whether you're poor, right? No matter where you are as part of this community, society tends to ask a whole lot of us as kids. So what else are you supposed to do as you're growing up, right? You're taking all these experiences and you develop into the adult that you're going to be. And then you get into positions like Nuri Martinez with all of these same ideologies that you have been raised and groomed to have your entire life. Of course, it's going to come out at some point, right? It only makes sense, as shitty as it is. So what can we do? What can we do to break some of this? Break some of these cycles, break some of these ideas about other communities, about our own communities. We know the stereotypes that we live with and experience too. What can we do?
Well,
Go ahead.
I feel like to begin with, it's not we have to be willing to hear them. You know, a lot of these people are like, you know what? Hey, I'll hear you out. They really won't.
Like the president at that town hall?
Yeah, or just anyone. You know, if you are willing to change, you have to be willing to hear them. You can't just be like, no, you're wrong, you're wrong. Be willing to let them speak, let their things be heard. And if we can even do that, we're not going to be able to.
There's even more division now in the time that we've been taught. What about you? I'm running your business. What about you? You can go out the door.
But I tell you what, though,
How do you feel balance teaching them, but allowing them?
I'm not going to do that either, right? Kids today are constantly on their phones because we are. They watch you do it. Kids don't read, they don't go out to the arcade, they don't even, like, it's not even a thing on their radar because we don't, right? Kids don't worry about asking for specific things anymore, right? Skates or like you were saying, like riding the bicycle, right? Because we don't, right? We lost all of that as a society. It's not on the kids to be able to bring that back. You want to create the balance for the kids, you have to literally model that shit. Yeah. So what did y'all do for fun this weekend? The faces alone, right? You're like, what? Fun? How do you want the kids to know then? Okay. All right. So, what are y'all thoughts about the bulletin special edition? Who approved this shit, right? Wonderful question to have. When y'all see stuff like that, what does it make you feel? Makes you mad? What else? What does that make you feel to see something like that? Sad? Disappointed? Right. What else? How y'all feeling? Disrespected? That's a good one, right? That's real. All of those things are so incredibly valid, and y'all should feel that. You should feel disappointed in the university for that shit, right? You should feel disrespected. That's crazy. Of all the terms in the world that they could find, right?
Like with the word things, like,
Why use them, right? And a half of a page full of degrading terms.
It's just crazy, 'cause, like, the school population is pure Mexican, pure Latinos.
We're in Mexico.
Literally.
And they're trying to name themselves as a Hispanic serving institution, right? Which brings funding. Ooh, wee. So, how would you like to respond to this? How would y'all like to respond to this? How? What should we do? I'm literally asking because I can't sit with this. And y'all already know I will go fight by myself if I have to. But I have a feeling that I don't. And this impacts y'all, right? This is you that this cover was supposed to represent. So what would you like to do? How can we respond to this? We're fortunate to be in a class that, you know, the topic is relevant to, right? And so that also gives us a little bit of an advantage over other classes, like a physics class, right? Or an English literature class. So we have a space here where we can actually say something, we can do something in response. Is that something that you would like to do? Do y'all want to talk amongst yourselves for a little bit and strategize? Okay, we will do that. Who is on here? Okay, so Shelly and Ashley, I will go ahead and put y'all into a breakout room. And if anybody else comes in, I'll just go ahead and add them into your breakout room. Y'all saw what I posted yesterday in the group chat?
Yes.
Okay, because that's what I can't let that just sit. So we're gonna have to take a little bit of a detour from what we were supposed to do. So we're essentially just strategizing how would we as a community together, like, can't let that just sit. So we're gonna have to take a little bit of a detour from what we were supposed to do. So we're essentially just strategizing how would we as a community together like to respond to this, right? And that can be an action, that can be a letter, that can be a request for a meeting, that whatever the case may be, right? However we decide to proceed, that's what we'll end up doing. So I'll throw y'all in a breakout room to give you the same opportunity to just chat and get this together. Don't want to traumatize a student unnecessarily if we can avoid that too, right? So if you were put in that position, you are the person who did this, right? You are ultimately the creator of this. How would you think what would you think is an appropriate response? And I'm going to read some of the comments that were put in the chat also. Request a meeting with the school officials who are responsible. Ooh, I like meeting. Request a meeting with school officials who are responsible for posting it. Because this is also like the school newspaper transition from being an internal website to an external website. Did y'all see that? Look at the screenshot that I sent you. You'll see the link at the top. When you Google CSUDH Bulletin, it gives you the old one, which is an internal website. I actually had a hard time finding it at first because I was Googling the bulletin and it wasn't pulling it up. So I went and looked at the screenshots that were sent to me and I saw that it was on an external website. That means that literally the mass public has had access to this. Demand an official apology to the students and community. If they refuse, call the local news station and have the students stand in together. I am definitely not above tagging and calling news stations. It's actually one of my favorite pastimes. I actually started tagging all the news stations, like the local news stations, when the API students were out there protesting at Convocation to see if I could get somebody to come cover that. So that's something that I'll do for sure. Y'all can even send this to local news outlets. I mean, it seems like news to me. Let them share their thought process. I don't think they should be fired. Okay. Now we're getting into a little bit more of that restorative thought process here. Definitely have to work through some of that anger first though, because golly. Ooh.
Imagine if they printed the news.
Imagine if they printed that. And they do print the bulletin. But as far as I know, they don't print the special editions. And so that one was a special edition. But they do print the bulletin. They have little places where you can pick it up all over campus. Yeah, I don't know that the special editions get printed though, but I'm pretty sure, like, because I've picked up several copies of it over the years. All right, any other thoughts, any other ideas that y'all would like to put to the table? If my online folks, if it's easier for you to say something out loud as well, you're more than welcome to do that too. Require the responsible person to take your class. I know, right? In hopes that we'll learn to be understanding of how their action has harmed the student body. Okay, no problem, Teresa. The death penalty does take a while to do too. So you'd sit on death row for a couple of years minimum.
I mean, yeah, but you know, it's gonna actually live. You know, I don't know if you know.
Okay. Other thoughts? It's a common argument. Which family? His family?
No, students, the people.
Sure. It's a tough situation. So I'm gonna put our notes up here, find out who designed it. Find out who approved it. Repost for visibility. And then tag VH accounts. And that's for Instagram. We can come together and look at all of the letters that get drafted and decide together which one we would like to use, right? Or which one we would like to edit to use. Okay? So this will be our first real brainstorming session for that. All right. Lego?